Okay, Adam, I see you. I'm making you the presenter. Looking forward to talking to you. It's been a while, bro. And a great day to have you at the beginning of the month.
Hey there.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Adam. How are you? How you doing, bro? All right.
Video up there.
Yeah. Looking good.
What screen?
You're showing the
screen here.
Yeah, you're showing the ForexAnalytix thing to reminder for you to be here every day. There you go. There's some charts. Okay, let me start off with the obvious, bro. What's your reaction to the reaction of the BOE?
Yeah, it's I mean, the bar was pretty low, but the market sniffed this out, and we saw that future hikes are going to be limited and gradual, and that was not what the market wanted to hear. That doesn't even sound like the door is really open to hiking for a while. Beforehand, there was about a 35% chance of a hike in February priced in, and that is just too high, and sterling is coming down. Now, at the same, I don't think it's entirely that. I think now you had this catalyst for a little bit of pound strength, and that it's just the Brexit sellers coming back again. I mean, they've just been relentless. You just assume that every week there are going to be 2 or 3 very negative Brexit headlines, and to try to stay long and withstand those, it's sailing into a headwind, and the market is just a lot more happy to be short. And I think even if there was a bit more of a hawkish signal, I don't think it would have lasted more than a few days. The Brexit sellers are selling.
You have a lot of experience following Carney, since he was in your country, and before he was drafted by the BOE, kind of like in NFL, he was traded. So
right. I don't want to be that guy who hates on his own team, but Carney, he's really overrated. I mean, in England, he's been talking about hikes forever. I think he almost had to hike today just to save face, because he's been talking about hiking for 3 or 4 years, and you got to do it eventually, or you're a joke. But I don't think it really saves face much at all. And it was the same in Canada. He was a little bit behind the curve, far too optimistic, just at the tail end of the crisis.
Where's he going next?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the Fed chair will be today.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I don't think Trump is going to pick him, but do you think it's going to be Powell, Adam? And is Powell really, like most people are saying, the status quo, very similar to what we had with Yellen and Bernanke?
Right. Yeah, that's the thinking, right? That he's the same guy. But with Powell, I mean, I've written about everything Powell said over the last 5 years, and there's just nothing memorable at all about the guy. And so we don't know as much about Powell as some of the commentators would lead you to believe. He is more of a wild card. The one thing we do know is he has been anti-regulation, especially in the last 6 months. Now, that might have been just lobbying for the job because he wanted to be Fed chair, but I think he's put in there to be easier on regulation, and that's great if you're a bank.
But that's not the Fed purview, is it? Regulation? That's not a Fed mandate to be lobbying against regulation, is it?
Yeah, I mean, they institute, supervise a lot of the banks and a lot of the lending, so it's
okay.
Smaller banks, and that is part of the, it's the less sexy part of the Fed mandate, and so there is some room there for him to loosen up on regulation. And it's that part of the cycle that we're in right now, right? You have a crisis, and then you tighten up too much on the regulation, then you loosen it, and you loosen it too much, and you get another financial crisis.
Okay, so he's also not an economist. That might be an advantage, huh?
I think it's time for that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know if it matters. I mean, the one thing is it's whatever 300 or 500 or whatever it is PhDs at the Fed. So I guess they run around calling each other doctor all day, and they just call him chairman. I mean, I don't see how that's going to hurt him. I mean, he could do the math. I'm sure he can understand the models. it's a little bit of a dumb.
Okay, so
Argument.
it used to be a regular feature, buddy, when you would come on and we'd have a conversation, and I've seen so much of your seasonal work end up manifesting. So here we are, November 2nd. What are you looking at seasonally? What are the tendencies in some of the pairs and instruments that you're covering here on your page?
Right. In November, it's the dollar month. It's a very good month for the dollar on almost every front, against the Aussie, against the yen, I mean, both sides of the carry trade there. It's really good, and I mean, we get some news, and I don't know if it's out now. It's out very soon. Supposedly, the tax plan from Congress, and that's clearly the catalyst. If not the Fed, if not economic data has been strong. I mean, November could turn into a real good month for the dollar. Sorry.
Okay, and what would be preferred shorts against the dollar? Would it be now that the pound has tipped its hand, the pound over being short euro?
Yeah, I mean, I heard the guys on before me talking about dollar CAD. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can make a pretty good argument almost right across the board. I like dollar yen. If this tax plan comes through, because you should still have more upside in stocks. And I'll be watching very closely the capital gains treatment. If there's a cut in capital gains for next year, nobody is going to be selling the winners this year until after year end. So I think you have like a free roll on some of those the high flyers in stocks.
Right, but normally yeah. I mean, they would defer it anyway, but this is even more of a reason for them to defer taking gains, and there'll be less tax loss selling them too.
And they'll well, except on the losers, because you'd get a better treatment on a loser. So you see the losers getting sold before year end. So you're going to have that divergence. That's not really a trade, but
more bifurcation. Just what we need, more bifurcation. So how about on the commodity front? I've noticed a nice little quiet but strong move to the upside in silver. Seasonally, I know sometimes late fall, early winter is usually a positive time for precious. What do you think?
Yeah, it is. It's a strong month for gold coming up. It's one of those spots that can withstand that U.S. dollar strength. It's on the flip side, it's weak for oil through year end, quite weak, in fact, for oil. But gold, it's good here. Then there's a little bit of a bump in December, and then early in the year, gold is super strong, and that's held true for about 5 or 6 years. And so that's one that's up for a little bit farther down the road. But for now, gold should actually be able to withstand this dollar rally. But there are a lot of moving parts, and the gold chart isn't looking great at the moment. I should bring it up actually if I'm talking about it.
Okay, and as we bring up gold, a lot of people, Adam, have gotten used to keying off U.S. dollar yen, that they move counter to each other, U.S. dollar yen and gold. And I noticed, I don't know if it was yesterday, may have been yesterday, that they were both up. What could be behind the possibility of that correlation that people are so used to following right now breaking down, or do you think that was just aberrational, that they were both trading together the last couple days?
It is a tough one, because anytime you get that geopolitical worry, you're going to see dollar yen higher, gold higher. It could be a bit of if you have stocks really cooking, that can get some dollar inflows, and you have gold selling because you lose that safe haven bid. So that is one thing I could see breaking it down. But I think in the bigger picture, you will see it follow along, but in a week-to-week or a day-to-day basis, it can disconnect. That dollar yen chart is looking awfully attractive, right? If we get up above, that's technical analysis 101, up above 114.50, it's going to be a straight shot. Yeah. I don't see why not.
So above 118 is a possibility for you, thinking this is the beginning of something major here in the yen, or just enough to shake out every bear? And if this is true, the other correlation would be in treasuries. So if the yen has a nice move to the upside, that would most likely portend higher yields. Is that true?
I don't have the chart here, but that, I mean, dollar 10-year yields are the big chart right now, and we're at 235, down a couple basis points today. 240 was that huge level. Bill Gross was saying that was like the end of the generational bull market in bonds if it went. I know Gunlack was talking.
Wasn't it 265? Was it the number? I think that was the high deal. Yeah.
Right, for this year, but it was this downtrend if you key it off.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Kind of cuts out during that, and I don't have the chart there, but yeah, if you get to 240, then you can quickly get to 260, and I think 260 takes you up to the top of this dollar yen chart, and then, you know, whatever beyond that. And I'm a no inflation guy, but you can easily get 2 or 3, 4 hikes in the next year and a half. And, you know, that's going to hurt the treasury market bad and send dollar yen, you know, 125, 130, because Japan is not moving off the lower bound anytime for the long foreseeable future.
Do you think that there's hope for, you know, the banks would love to see the yield curve from flattening to begin to, you know, have higher yields on the back end than the front end, and definitely do not want to see it invert? What do you think is going to be the outcome if we get that many hikes going into 2018?
Yeah, the growth will have to be there, and the inflation as well. If the Fed decides it needs to be ahead of the curve and starts hiking, you know, December, March, every 3 months, you could easily see an inverted yield curve if inflation doesn't cooperate, or there's some sort of stumble. I mean, right now it all looks so good, but you know, there could be a financial crisis in China. Could be some, you know, these volatility products are worrisome. Whatever it is, if you have rates, I mean, you can't really invert the yield curve at, you know, 1% or whatever we're at. But if you get it up at 2.5% on Fed funds, I mean, it's pretty easy to invert the yield curve. So the risks are just much higher than, and I mean, it's what, a 10-year bull market. It's got to end at some point. But
can the U.S. really handle that math of 3-4% yields on a 10-year as we continue to balloon our deficit? I mean, you know, will the math still work, especially if this tax cut is not revenue neutral?
Oh, I don't think there's any way it's going to be revenue neutral. Deficits will go up, but I mean, look at Japan. It's 300% debt to GDP there.
Yeah.
I think we're past the era of deficit worries. I really believe that.
Because we have central bank puts? Is that the reason?
I think part of it was a little bit overrated in general. I mean, go back to 2000, how much debt was there in the U.S. then, and everybody was panicking. There was this, you know, this. Oh
yeah, even back to Ross Perot. When you were in kindergarten and Ross Perot ran as an independent candidate. That was the 90s.
It's like, you know, you have to pay your debts. Well, that's true, but the U.S. has how much in terms of assets as well, and how much in terms of the ability to print money, the ability to tax the military that's unbelievably powerful. There is, you know, it's not like someone in the future necessarily has to pay it as long as the asset prices go up. I mean, the amount of wealth is unbelievable, and I don't see it. I really think that's the way the wind is blowing, is that deficits don't matter, and as long as you can borrow in your own currency, which really hurts the Eurozone. But places where they are running deficits are just doing a little bit better, and it goes back to politics. I mean, and Abe as well in Japan. I mean, there's this push for fiscal discipline there, and he just kind of threw it out the window. And how long has he been prime minister for now? So I think if you want to win in politics, you give up on the deficits and you boost growth by maybe 0.5 percentage point.
Right.
And that's the ticket to win. I think if you ask Trump right now, he'd say, okay, would you add $5 trillion to the deficit if it meant re-election? Yeah. And that's, I think, the math that politicians are doing everywhere, and voters are cooperating.
That's a pearl, buddy. So I know that you're probably being saturated and hit with, you know, something that, you know, you and I weren't really talking about much 3 years ago or so, but this mania in crypto. I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions, and even people like my stepson are, they're sending me emails. Dale, I hear Bitcoin's gone through the roof, and it's going to continue to go through the roof. What do you think? And I told him I have no idea. So what are you telling people when they're asking about this phenomenon?
Well, we were there 3 years ago, but I mean, and it was the same thing I was saying. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago in Montreal. There was these guys opened up this thing. It was the Bitcoin embassy, and these guys must have bought Bitcoin at like 5 cents, and they made millions, and they reinvested in this building that was just like it was all about how to use Bitcoin and using it, and they were these real, well, they were ambassadors on it. And I went and met these guys and talked to the people then, and they were so enthusiastic. I mean, they were real, true believers, and you just saw that community grow, right? It was this compelling argument. I mean, everyone's heard all the arguments, and that enthusiasm, and it's that true, pure, almost religious belief, and that's what's taken it so high. I'm sure it's the same in your community. I mean, if I write something negative about Bitcoin, there's 100 people on my website, calling me names. But and I think the trade isn't really the fundamentals of it. It's the other guy. You're trading on how much does the other guy believe, and when they believe like they do, I mean, you go to 10,000. And right. I think the trade right now is a wait for that ETF, and until it comes out, and that ETF makes it so much easier to invest in and trade in. But it'll be interesting to see, because the futures launch this week, I see it as a negative because it makes it easier to buy Bitcoin. You're not actually buying Bitcoin, you're just buying this price index, the sort of thing. So that isn't going to eat into supply, and arbitrage trade, it's not really there. So I see it as a negative, but I can see the arguments for on the fundamental side, other cryptocurrencies as better means of doing transactions. I think Bitcoin,
they're faster,
right?
Yeah.
So
they could handle more transactions. The software is more cutting edge.
Right. I think eventually it loses out, but does it get to 10,000 or 20,000 or something? But beyond that, I think it's almost a sure shot to 10,000 at this point, having hit 7,500 today.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you get hate mail about Bitcoin, what are the negatives that you write about that piss people off?
I think one was that it's not a currency, just kind of useless as a currency, as a way to transact. And you couldn't for a while there say anything that it wasn't the future. If you didn't say it was the future of currencies and that fiat was stupid and worthless, I mean, it's the internet, right? But I think now within the crypto community, there is a lot more understanding about the limitations of it and how maybe other cryptocurrencies might be better. So now there's this kind of infighting, right? Yeah. About whether it's Ethereum or whether it's Dash or whether it's Monero. I don't know the answer. But
Tom in our room said Bitcoin is a fancy way to sell copper.
Yeah, I mean, it's people want to believe in it, and we'll see when there's ETFs. But at the end of the day, it's an amazing chart. I think that's what it came down to, and that enthusiasm, and it's a trade. I think there's some people who want to buy it and hold it for 100 years. I think we're going to find that a lot of the long-term holders at 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever it is decide that it's not a long-term store of value, and when that happens, it's back down to 100 pretty quickly.
Well, do you think that the governments are, China tried? Do you think that the U.S. would ever try and shut it down? And could they even shut it down?
I think it's coming. I really do. I think the year ahead, there will be some foray. And they'll go after the exchanges. they will go after the ICOs, which are you know, a lot of them are pretty insane. That I think a big headline, if you're long, that which would be scary, is something like that. I mean, that's really the trade right now. If you look at it on the day-to-day trade, is be afraid of regulatory headlines, because that's when you get those 10-20% drops, whether it's China or Russia or South Korea or Japan or who knows where it might come from. And there's positive risk associated with that as well. But it seems like the path is always higher until you get some regulatory worries.
Okay. You know, one of the attractions is anonymity, right? So, you know, people that wanted to, that used to go to cash and do cash transactions, or, you know, Big Brother not knowing everything they do with their money, that a lot of the flows were so that people could have anonymous type transactions. I was talking about this earlier today with Stelios, and he said he was a programmer, and most programmers are lazy, and he suspects that there's a potential backdoor that could blow wide open the anonymity of Bitcoin owners and traders. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, well, I think the wallets are trackable. So, I mean, I think there are ways. It's when you get it out, that's when they can track you down, because now they've taken a lot of the anonymity away from exchanges. So,
right,
to transfer out of that is when they catch you. And yeah, you know, we saw with the WannaCry hack attack that they used Bitcoin, and I think we're at this time now when there is going to be a major computer attack. And that's, you know, worldwide, and it's massive, and it's a ransomware sort of thing that wants to be paid in Bitcoin or some other kind of cryptocurrency. And that's probably when the government starts to step in and say, all right, enough is enough. We're
interesting. What makes you think something like that is going to happen? Because of the intensity of cyber warfare between different nations? What is leading you to think that?
I think, well, number one is that we've seen it, right? It's like kind of the WannaCry was the proof of concept. It made money. Number two is you couldn't really launch this sort of hack and bug previously because you couldn't get paid for it. There were, you know, you could ask for money in PayPal, but you're going to get caught. But now that you have crypto, you can. It's like it's commercially viable or criminally viable at least. And number three, I just think that's the sophistication of some of these tools that are out there, be it in Russia or wherever they're coming from, is intense, and everything's so interconnected. You know, if you have hospitals now running everything online, like we saw in the UK during that attack. So that, I think, if that headline, and I think you just want to be one step ahead of it, if that headline hits, that there is a major attack underway, you probably want to be selling crypto, even though there might be a bump during it, because obviously people have to pay to get, you know, you have to buy Bitcoin or whatever it is to unlock your computer or something like that. Then I think afterwards the regulators will be coming down on that. And I think that's probably going to be a big story in 2018 or 2019 or whenever it happens.
Okay. Well, Adam, you know, you contribute so much every time you're here with, you know, your views, both fundamentally and technically. I'd like to give you a chance to talk about Forex Live and what you and Greg and your team do there, and what people could take advantage of to, you know, check out your service. So why don't you take a few minutes, maybe go to your website and talk about what your mission is at Forex Live. I know that you guys are so active on social media, and I pay attention to your tweets, and you're a great content provider, because you really come from a trading background. So, I mean, the best content, I believe, comes from people doing it, and I know you and Greg are. So,
yeah, thanks. So we have Mike there now. I mean, it's Forex Live is live analysis and news of data as it comes out. The site updates live at forexlive.com, and whenever headlines cross, I mean, we've got every news service in the world, and as headlines cross, we deliver the news and interpret it and analyze it in real time. So whether it's the Bank of England decision, what this means, or the Fed decision yesterday, we are talking about, for traders, what it means. Okay, so Bank of England's out, watch this level if it's negative, and here's why it's negative, and here's why it's, or with the Fed yesterday, here's why it's probably not as bad as it seems. And so we are standing in there 24 hours a day, around the clock, delivering news as it happens very, very quickly, and we take a lot of pride in that, and talking about what it means. So yeah.
Okay. Well, what a great service.
Technical analysis calendar, and yeah, we've been doing it for almost 10 years now. So yeah, it definitely been.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've been doing it since you were about 8 years old now. No, I mean 10. I'm kidding you. So yeah, Adam, you look great, and thanks again, buddy. You know, I'll invite you, as long as I have breath, I will always invite you to join our community, because you're one of my favorite guests, and I always come away with insights and confirmations of my views, and you really provide a great service by being a giving spirit and coming here to F.A.C.E most of the time when I ask you.
Today's a crazy day, so you know, it's going to be a fun one. Always fun to come on and hear your little pearls of wisdom there, Dave. So for Dale. So yeah, have a wonderful one. I'm really looking forward to some of these tax numbers that come out. I mean, we're all a little bit tired of the politics.
What are you looking for in the NFP for tomorrow? We'll wrap it there, Adam.
Oh man, we're already into on-farm payrolls Friday. Yeah, I'm eager to see the revisions really to September and see how that comes out. It's typically August, September might be revised higher. You know, I don't really think it matters that much. We've got a skew on the wages that came in from the hurricanes that might come back out. So my guess is it's $1 negative on the headline, but I think it'll be a lot like the Fed decision in that, you know, maybe 50 pips to the downside, but you want to pick it up on something like dollar yen, because like I said, it's a great month for the dollar. So that might be the dip to buy for dollar longs.
I really appreciate you being here today, Adam, and giving us your time. Hope that you have a great NFP day. Thanks for all your views and your seasonal views. I'll be looking to the dollar for the long side throughout November, and I'm not going to fight the yen anymore. You just gave me some more confirmation to do it. So good hunting, my trading warrior brother. And until next time, may pips rain down on you and Forex Live and everyone who follows you.
All right, all the best.
Thank you. All right, so that's it. We have the NFP tomorrow, my friends. I just want to show you Euro Swiss before we go. Looks to me like it's starting to gain some mo to the downside. Still think that it's a possible very good trade. We failed at 61.8. We start taking out 162.20 or so. I'm looking for some acceleration. I'll see everyone tomorrow for the NFP. Investing.com viewers are always welcome to join us. And I want to thank you for your attention. Good hunting the rest of the day. And remember that it doesn't end here at ForexAnalytix, that we have our trading room for our subscribers, and there's plenty of ideas floating around all day, all afternoon, and even into the evening hours. Good hunting, my trading warrior brothers and sisters. And above all, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. I count working with each and every one of you a blessing. Adios. You're very welcome, Corrine, Elena, Kevin, Ronit. See all you action junkies tomorrow for the NFP. You're welcome, Gino. Glad to meet you.